Exclamation point submit next time. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Cool.
All right, so we've got Juha up next, and the song is "Walk with the Breeze."
Mm,
The description. So this is work in progress. We heard this one 2 weeks ago, I think,
yep.
and it says that it's been changed. Violins one and viola now play the melody. Orchestra swells made more swelly. I think we did talk about that. And
Yep.
yes, indeed, did compress the timpani to try to bring its transients out more. Great.
Cool.
That's awesome. I can't wait to hear how has changed.
Same. The Ghibli Zelda type vibe. Let's do it.
Yeah. All right. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, so nice.
So Ghibli. This makes me want to get my blanket. Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
Mm. Tiffany. I can actually tell what it is now. It's good.
Yeah.
Steady symbol. Oh, Josh's favorite
Mm.
part. Ooh, this part sounds
Yeah.
great with that timpani. Walk with the breeze, Juha Gough, everybody. Fuck, hold up.
Nice. Oh man, that end part wants me. I sort of want the one there because you just get the seventh, and it's like I want it to resolve, but it's kind of cool. I like that. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of songs do
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm. Oh
Yeah, I
shit.
feel like this is definitely an improvement from before. You said that you
Bro, the
didn't
timpani
change the.
sounds so serious now.
Yeah, the timpani definitely, like, brings it up a notch, it sounds a lot better now,
Wow.
and I was
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't know if you changed anything else, like, just with levels of some of the instruments or whatever, but that middle part, I think what we were addressing before was some of the sound choices sounded a little like, obviously, they were like a sample pack or something, they didn't sound like the instruments that you're sampling, right? And that's very common, it's very hard to find things like wind instruments, like strings, even sometimes drums that are like realistic, especially when you're modeling the actual instruments, which you are here.
Hmm.
And for some reason, some change that you made, maybe it was the timpani or some of the levels, I thought that section sounded a little bit more realistic this time. So that
I
was
thought
good.
that section was the best balance, to be honest.
Yeah, I
Since we
agree.
want to say shout out first time chat, so I thought, what's up, bro? And Mito Music, he's next in the queue, I think. Gosh, it's so good. Juha,
Hey,
you got fans.
let's go. Yeah,
Yeah.
I should say, or Chris, do you want to give your first impressions?
Um, it's beautiful music, man. I love it. Um, the timpani, dude, I swear it sounds so much more serious. That's crazy to me how that part, because if you said you didn't change much in the middle part, I know you changed the timpani because you told us that you did. Dude, it sounds so good. Like that was my favorite part. Last time we said it was like kind of hokey. That was my favorite part.
Yeah.
And I think I liked it a little bit better than Josh did the first time. But yeah, so I noticed that the entrances in the beginning when the strings first come in, you did make it more swelly. I do think there might be too much swell, interestingly enough, throughout the song. But the imagery that I also saw in my head was that a conductor is kind of swelling the orchestra and in and out. So if that's what you were going for, I think it came across well. Um, if it's not what you're going for, maybe what I could say is I don't know what exact meter or knob they give you, but what I'm thinking is like a attack time, for example. Um, for those notes where after the strings have been established and they've been swelled in nicely, you can turn that attack time down such that, if they're playing like a complex part that's very fast notes, that you can hear those fast notes instead of it kind of just slowly fading in with each note. So, um, in terms of balance, I'm sorry, I'm just getting into production right away. Um,
Can I offer a comment based on your strings
sure,
thing?
sure, sorry.
So I wanted to wait for Chris to give some initial stuff here before we went into that, but
Yeah,
that's
I'm
what I was
getting,
gonna
yeah.
say before is like um the the strings I think might be one of the most important components of this song to make it sound really good, and I think they're also probably the hardest part to make them sound like realistic and natural. And I would have to agree with what Chris says about the like too much swelling. And what I identified was like way too much range and volume, right? The quietest part, like at the beginning, I felt like was even a little bit too quiet, and the loudest was too loud. So like your other instruments are floating around here in the middle most of the time, and the strings are like down here, then roller coaster, like way above everything else, like a little bit piercing, too loud, and then like back down kind of quickly. And I think what he was saying about like attack time, um, the whole thing with the swells, like Chris, you said you were visualizing like a conductor like doing that. I
Mhm.
was more seeing a fader because it
Yeah,
felt like when a conductor does that, there's sort of this inherent like inertia of getting all the strings players to ramp up together that makes things inherently very smooth, right? And that's why it sounds so nice and like visceral when all the strings players get louder, but their volume doesn't it sounded to me like what was happening was the volume was changing more than the intensity of the strings themselves, which is confusing because when you
yeah,
hear an orchestra that's recorded in a room and everybody swells up, you can hear that energy change and the spectrums of the instruments get brighter and all of that stuff. But the volume doesn't have a huge range, right? It does have some dynamic range, but this is like too much to where it doesn't sound like real strings. It sounds like it's a pad or like a synth type thing that's just being modulated with automation and a DAW. So I would again like try to work a little bit on reducing the dynamic range just a little bit of those strings because the volume itself is going up and down too much. and trying to slow the swells down a little bit so they're a little bit more elegant. Um, and again, there were places where it felt like there were maybe unnecessary swells that sort of went way down low and then back up like a second later, and just sort of stretching that stuff out a little bit, making it a little more legato might be nice.
Mhm.
Um, should we go into the categories?
Yeah, let me just address the chat real quick.
Sure.
What's up, Darius? ZGD. Juha Gough, for sure, I agree. A little too much swell. I wish I had a couple more days to iron out before your stream, but your stream is coming up, and I want to be involved. Appreciate you,
Nice.
Yuga.
Yeah.
And I
Hell
mean,
yeah.
yeah, it's a work in progress still. So yeah, take it in stride. And dude, I mean, where you're going, it's sounding really great, and a lot of people like it here.
Yeah.
Darius says, "Could I show you one of my tracks? Just started. Sure. Okay, we're gonna have to send it. Thank you, P Blizzard. You fucking rock, bro. I think another thing that we want to do is get like a Q plugin or extension or something. We're telling our team about that. But yeah, for now, appreciate that. For now, the Q we have. Yuha just went. He's our third person. We have Meadle to the stars. He's in the chat. So sit tight. With Kokomono, with Espa Beats, and then Kai Lethal. So Darius, um, we might. We typically go till 7:30 p.m., which is about an hour from now at the latest. You might be able to get in at that time if we go a little fast, but yeah. Even if we don't get it, we get to them eventually, and we'll push you just to the top of the queue next week. So that's what it's looking like now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. All right. So uh, we did kind of our first impressions. Should we do our rating system?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay. Yuha says, "Go ahead and finish me up and move on. It's all good." And Darius says, "It's okay. I'll wait." All right. Up to you, bro. Um,
Everyone's so polite here.
yeah, it's crazy. It must have been the music.
Yeah.
Vibes, it's right up my alley. I love Ghibli. I love Zelda. It's it's literally like Ghibli in the beginning. Oh, I have to get to it later. Ghibli in the beginning, and then Zelda riding on a horse in the middle, and then beautiful ending. So green for me. Content. Um, I think I think all the instrument choices sounded a lot better. Tiffany sounded fantastic. That's more production though. Um, Yeah, I think content is pretty much green. The only thing I would say, and I talked about this before, is with Joe Hisaishi in particular, he has a very strong knack for making very memorable melodies. And I think I mean I hear the motif of the triplets and dun 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 dun, coming back in from the beginning and the ending, and it's there kind of throughout. But Joe, and I think you know what I'm talking about, Yuha, it's just on another level with melody. So try to, I guess the only thing for content wise, if you could try to make a melody that just sticks with me and that's like kind of played as a motif throughout, I think that would take this to the next level. So I would say it's like 80% green, 20% yellow. Production, Tiffany sounds fucking great. Good job. Good change. Swells. There's a little bit too much swells, maybe overcorrection a little bit, but I think it definitely sounds better than cheesy strings coming in and with no warning. Um,
Right.
I think that middle part sounds fantastic. I think it's the best balance that you have. Try to reference everything with that middle part. I think. I would say the only thing I have to say production wise is in the beginning, when the strings do first come in, they swelled nicely. But I think they kind of overtake the piano and the whatever an oboe. I don't know if what I'm hearing, but it has like a bump 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 part, which I feel like that's the main melody, and it's weird that they're getting overshadowed. They're also centered, so I figured that's the main point. And if it's like an orchestra kind
Mm,
of surrounding the space, I would love to just like push the orchestra out to the side with like some stereo
yeah.
delay or something, and not down the middle. Um, but yeah, that's my kind of thoughts. Production, I would say maybe 60% yellow, 40% green. But yeah, what do you think, Josh?
Yeah. I mean, vibes. What is there to complain? I would say like the only thing that could distract from the vibes is just some of the dynamics being a little bit awkward. But overall, it puts everyone in a good mood here, as we can see from the chat. And it's nice. So I would give it pretty much a green for vibes.
Mm,
Content, I think really what you're dealing with is like if you can maybe like I sort of see what Chris is saying about having like a melody that's more consistent throughout or something like a theme.
yeah,
Uh, like it's very pleasing and relaxing, but I just wish we could like have something more like catchy or memorable as
yeah.
like a melodic, like a melodic motif that we could kind of have throughout. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not, it's not the end of the world if you don't have that, I
Yeah, to
think.
be honest, like that's to me, that's like a difference between good to go and purple.
Yeah,
But I mean, I think our goal is to try to get everybody to good to go because purple is subjective at
right.
the end of the day. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, and then other than that, I mean, the swells might be part of arrangement, sort of, but other than that, content I think is an improvement from last time, I would say, and just about at green, if
yeah,
not all the way there. Production is the main thing, just with like those violins are sort of getting in the way a little bit. At the beginning, I, I felt like the piano sounds really nice, and I didn't feel like it was a huge problem. But I did notice the strings were quite a bit lower in volume relative to the piano, where one sounded much further, in field than the other. Um, and then what happened, like Chris said, those violins overtook the piano and everything else. They got a lot louder in that second section. So just making it a little bit more consistent. And maybe like if you're having trouble judging the volume of those two things at the beginning against each other or anywhere else, turn your volume down like as pretty much as low as you can tolerate, and then try to judge the levels again. Because if you're listening to something for a long time at the same volume, you lose perspective as to how loud things actually are. And it can just be a good little trick to see like when you turn it down and the piano is at like a sort of an even volume and the strings are much lower, then you lose them and you're like, oh, the strings must be too low, and then you know to turn them up a little bit. So yeah, the low volume trick might be useful here. And for
for
production, I would
balance.
give it probably around develop, maybe even like a chartreuse somewhere between yellow and green.
That's what I
But
was thinking.
yeah, track totals.
Track total, I think it's almost good to go. Because the swell stuff, it's at that point it's pretty much subjective. But I do hear what Josh is saying that it sounds like a fader. It did sound like a fader instead of a conductor. I pictured that's like what maybe effect he was going for with the conductor thing. But yeah, so I would say it's like pretty much maybe 75% green,
Yeah,
25% yellow.
I was gonna say about like 80% of the way to green.
Yeah,
All
cool.
right,
I
cool.
can't wait to
Thanks
hear
for
it.
sending us another very
It's so
relaxing
cool to
track. And
hear, dude, the timpani, man. Like the last time I was like, if you remember, the last time we listened to it, I was like, what the fuck is that? I
yeah,
was like, oh, is that a timpani? And then
right.
now it's like, it's obvious. All
And
right.
just hearing it twice was cool.
Yeah. All right. So we'll go into the next.